Joel. I am the pastoral intern here at One Life, and we're really glad you're here this morning, so welcome. And we want to get to know you guys a little bit, so at the bottom of your bulletin is a little tear-off sheet. Please take some time to fill that out. There's pens on the end of every aisle, and let us know a little bit about you. And if there's anything, I guess the most important thing is there anything we can do for you as a church here at One Life? If you have any prayer requests or anything physical that you need, please fill that out and put that on there. Either put it in the offering basket as it goes by, or give it to Kyle out at our connections table after the service. We appreciate knowing stuff about you, and we do appreciate getting prayer requests. We meet together as a staff every week to pray for you guys. And we love to do that. At the end of each row, like I said, are pens. There's also Bibles there. If you want to use one of those Bibles to follow along today, you're welcome to. If you don't have a Bible at home and want one, you're free to take one of those home with you. And we encourage you to do so. And if you're new this morning, a special welcome to you. Thank you for being here. If you've never been to One Life before, we appreciate you being here. And we have a gift for you to say thank you for coming. It's out at our connections table out in the cafe. So after the service, just stop by there and get a nice little gift from us, which includes candy, which my kids tell me is important. So there you go. And if you've been here for the past few weeks, or if you're just joining us this morning, we're in the middle of a series called What If? And it's a series where we're taking some time to ask and hopefully answer some of the really big questions that we have about life. Not just things like, hey, what should we have for breakfast, or what kind of car I should buy. I guess that was a little bit bigger. But more things like, why is the world the way it is? Why do things work the way things work? And as we mature, as we grow older, we all come up with answers to these questions, whether we know it or not. And those answers reflect in our behavior, how we interact with others and how we interact with the world around us. What we believe about why the world is here affects how we treat the world and how we treat people. So our beliefs impact our actions, which is good and great if our beliefs are right, but sometimes our beliefs are wrong. Anyone ever been there? I know I have. I remember one time when I was a child, I was probably about 6 years old, 7, 5, I don't know. I was young anyway, and I had this firm belief that no one could shake that tomatoes were bad. Tomatoes were bad. I don't think I've ever had a tomato. I don't know that there was a reason that I had this belief, but in my mind, tomatoes were bad, and I wasn't going to eat tomatoes because they were bad. That's the kind of 6-year-old reasoning that I dealt with. I still deal with sometimes today, actually. But anyway, so one day, I'm at my grandma's house, and we're having hamburgers for lunch, and my grandma tells me an earth-shattering thing. Ketchup is made from tomatoes. Right? Okay, my life's ruined at this point. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, there's a picture of a tomato on the bottle. I'm like, I don't want ketchup. That was my response. I love ketchup, but I wasn't going to admit that because I hated tomatoes. Right? So, anyways, that was a big old fight. You don't need to hear about all that. But the point is, after going home and calming down a bit and getting over that emotional trauma, I realized that tomatoes are kind of awesome. You know, because ketchup was awesome, and pizza was awesome, and spaghetti was awesome, and lasagna. Anyways, the list goes on. The things we do with tomatoes are amazing. And they're really good. So I was wrong about my belief in tomatoes, and that affected my behavior. From that point on, I started eating more tomatoes than I probably should. Another example from my own life, and guys, you'll get this. If you're in the room, you'll understand this. When I was a younger man, I swore to myself that minivans were the evilest thing ever. All right? I would never, ever be caught dead in a minivan, because nobody drives minivans except for creepy old ladies, right? No, guys don't drive minivans. No way. And then I bought a minivan, and it's frankly the best car I've ever had. So sometimes our beliefs about things aren't quite, it turns out that maybe what we believe isn't quite the way things actually are. And that's all fine when it comes to things like tomatoes and things like minivans, but what about God? Some of us have beliefs about God that are impacting our actions, and sometimes those beliefs are wrong, aren't they? And that's what That's what I want to get at today in this what if we're going to deal with today. And last week, we talked about, what if I don't like church people? And then the week before that, we talked about what if I don't find my purpose in life? Big questions that our attitudes about God reflect how we treat others. And today we're going to deal with a different question, a question that everyone here in the room has wrestled with, I'm positive. And it happens, we wrestle with this question, it happens when we see devastation from the flooding that's going on in Louisiana, or when we hear about a tsunami that wiped out half of Japan, or we hear about an earthquake in Nepal. We ask this question ourselves when we watch the evening news and we hear about a drunk driver killing a family, or when we hear about a predator abducting and abusing children, or we see someone we love and we see the effects of cancer on that person. Or we look across the world and we see things like genocide happening, and we see a whole group of people who have no place to live. And whether we say it out loud or not, I think if we're being honest, we all think these things. We all think, why do bad things happen to good people? What did they do to deserve this? What did I do to deserve this? Did God make this happen? Or is he allowing it to happen? And if he's allowing it to happen, why is he allowing it to happen to me? Why would he allow so much pain and suffering in the world? So here's our what if we're going to talk about today. What if we just can't trust God because of all the hurt and pain? We all think it at times, I think. God doesn't seem so good when life's really bad, does he? And here we talked about our beliefs impacting our actions. Here, how that belief can impact our actions. When we pray, we can pray with our fingers crossed. When we pray, we're not really sure what good prayer is going to do for us. And we don't necessarily want to get our hopes up, so we don't believe that God can help us. We doubt that God is ever going to come through for us because he doesn't seem to be very good at times. I think along with that, we tend to be not trusting towards God. God tells us to trust him with our finances, but, I'm not so sure. God, you don't always seem so good, so I'll just handle the money part. God says to trust us with his future, with our future. And we think, I think I'll just take my chances. Just take my chances on my own. Because there's a part of us that doubts, isn't there? There are times that God doesn't seem very great. Times that God doesn't seem very good. And we've all struggled with this, I know. I've struggled with this. I'm willing to bet you have. I think about people out there who have children and they don't want those children. And they abandon them, or they abuse them, or they sell them. There's a lot of that going on in the world right now. And then I think on the other end of the spectrum, I know people who have been trying to have children for years who can't do it. Doesn't seem very fair. And I think about people who I know in this church who love God, who serve God. And then they get cancer, and they pass away. Why? Why do those things happen? I think about single mothers who love their kids so much and work 2 jobs to support them and do everything they can to provide for their children and give them a good life, all because somebody ran out on them, and it's not their fault. It's not their fault, so why did they have to deal with that? And here's what I know about every single person in this room. You are either going through pain right now, or you will. And For those of us who aren't in a season of pain in our lives, it's a little bit easier to be kind of philosophical about this question, about how God relates to it, and we can stand outside the situation a little bit, and we can make judgments upon the people in them, or we can make judgments upon God. We can look at a situation and say, well, you know, God must not be good because of what's happening there. God must not be great because of that earthquake. Or if we follow that line of reasoning, eventually we get to the point where we say, well, God must just not exist because of all the bad stuff that's going on. And I think we do this because when we experience pain, our natural reaction is to lash out against it, to fight against it, and to blame other people and other things. And we move towards hate, and we move towards bitterness. Or maybe we just don't deal with it. We avoid it. We don't think about it. And we just leave it alone. And we think, well, there just must not be a God. But for those of us who are in a season of pain, it's a much more emotional process. We ask questions like, God, where are you? Why? Why are you allowing this to happen? What have I done to deserve this? And when, God, when are you going to fix it? And if you're in pain today, if you're in a season of pain in your life, you need to know that asking these questions is okay. It's okay. They're normal to ask. We all ask them. And I want to talk today to people who are in both groups, people who are not in a season of pain right now and can be a little more philosophical and intellectual about it. And then I also want to talk to those of us who are dealing with stuff in our lives at the moment. And hopefully in each case we'll see a little bit about what the Bible has to say about pain and suffering. And I just want to start out and say this. If you are in pain this morning, or you know someone who is in pain, there's only so far logic and intellectual reasoning can take you. I may be able to give you some answers this morning, maybe. I might even be able to make things make sense intellectually, but the truth is you're going to walk out the door, and you're still going to be in pain. You need more than answers, don't you? You need comfort. Right now, I want to try and look at these questions that we ask God. And I want to do what little I can to help us come up with some answers. So on the philosophical side of things, like I said, we get to this point in our reasoning when we look at pain and suffering in the world, and we say, because there is suffering, there must not be a God. There must not be a God because there's pain in the world. After all, how could we possibly believe that there's a God when things like the Holocaust happen? Or 9/11? Or a tsunami that wipes out half a country? Or a war that's been running on for years? How can we believe in a God in a situation like that? Maybe there just isn't a God. I think that's a fair question to ask. There's a story in the Bible about a guy named Job. And Job went through some stuff in his life. That's how I term it today. He went through some stuff. He lost his livelihood. He lost his kids. He lost his health. And one day, while he was just basically on the floor in a fetal position complaining, his wife came up to him and he said, "Why don't you just curse God and die?" How's that for a Hallmark card? Anyone get one like that on Valentine's Day? How would you like to be married to someone like that? Not very much. All right, show of hands. How many of you are married to? No, okay, we're not going to do that. But basically, what she was saying to Job is, Job, don't cling to what your faith wants you to hold on to. You need to die to this notion, this silly notion that there is a good, great God out there somewhere. Get over it, Job. Wake up and smell the coffee. There is no God. That's what she's saying in that statement. There is no God. And some of us have heard things like that before. I know in today's world it's hard not to hear things like that. And some of us have thought things like that before. And I would be willing to bet there's at least a few of us here this morning who believe that. That God doesn't exist. But here's the real problem with that kind of thinking. If we admit that there are evil things and bad things happening in the world, then we make the assumption that there is something that's called good. Right? You can't have evil unless you have good. So if we're admitting that there's a good category and there's an evil category, how do we decide what goes in which category? How do we figure that out? Let me tell you a story. After the Holocaust, the generals of the Third Reich were put on trial in the Nuremberg trials. And their defense was this: we were just obeying the laws of our country, so we can't be held responsible for the evil things that we did. That was their defense. Finally, the lawyer in the case, who was an American, threw up his hands, and he said to them, "Is there not a law above our laws? Is there not an authority higher than our authority, to which all men, regardless of mandate of any political leader, must be held accountable?" I think he makes a good point, and I believe that deep down inside of all of us is a moral code that separates things into the good category and separates things into the evil category. And if that's the case, then a moral code, a moral law, has to have a lawgiver. There must be some authority upon which that code is based. And if you think about it, if you deny God, if you deny God's existence, if you come down as an atheist, what do you actually accomplish by doing that? I share a quote with you from Dinesh D'Souza, who wrote a book called What's So Great About Christianity. He says, "In the past 100 years or so, the most powerful atheist regimes, groups of people who believe there's no God, Communist Russia, Communist China, and Nazi Germany, have wiped out people in astronomical numbers. Focusing only on those big three, Stalin, Hitler, and Mao, we have to recognize that atheist regimes have, in a single century, murdered more than 100 million people." Denying God's existence does not put an end to pain and suffering. But if that's the case, then the next step is, well, fine. Then if God exists, then he must not be good. And I think when people say that, when people say God must not be good, I think what they're really saying is that I can do a better job than he's doing. I think there are times in our lives where we all like to sit in God's chair, wouldn't we? Because we think we can do better. We all want to take a crack at this. We all want to say, for me, for a personal example, I want to say, you know what? If I was God, then my mom wouldn't have died of cancer when I was 17 years old. That would not have happened. If I was God, then my wife wouldn't have been in a car accident 6 years ago and still have neck problems to this day. Those things would not exist if I was God. But then we get a little more vindictive about things, don't we? Well, if I was God, then that person who hurt me is going to get what's coming to him. Right? And that's the way it ought to be. Bad people should get what's coming to them. Good people should be able to walk away from things unscathed. But we all want bad things to happen to people who hurt us, don't we? And that is definitely not a better solution. But why is that even an option for us? Why is it even an option for us to think, well, I would hurt these people, but not these people? And I think to understand this, we have to go back to the very beginning of the world. See, the reason God created the world was to have a loving relationship with you and with me. So he created man and woman, and he put them in this garden, but then he gave them a choice. He said to them, you can either obey me, or you can disobey me. You guys ever wonder why choice. Because of love. We can't love God if He's forcing us to do it. And He wants to have a loving relationship with us. You can't make other people love you. It has to be your choice or their choice. He gave us the freedom to either turn towards Him or to turn away from Him because He wants to love us. And this fundamental principle is really the key to everything. To everything. And to give you an example, in the movie Bruce Almighty, how many have seen that? Great movie. I realize that I'm a little bit older now, that I remember that from like when I was young. Anyway, point being, Bruce in the movie gets frustrated because God's not doing things right. God's getting it wrong, and He doesn't fix everything in his life. So God gives Bruce a chance to be God for a few days. And He has the power to fix all his problems, but the one thing He can't do, and the one thing He really wants to do in the movie is to make his girlfriend love Him. And He says to her, "Love me, love me." She just walks away. And God told him, "You can't mess with free will." You see, in God's world, freedom to choose is foundational. And most of the time we love that, don't we? We exercise our freedom to do what we want, to follow our dreams. We use our minds to do fun and creative things, and we choose to follow God or not. And it's all up to us, and we love it. And it's great. But other times we don't love that freedom so much, do we? See, we don't love that freedom when our choices hurt us. If I were to choose to cheat on my wife and sleep around and then get a disease that killed me, or if we were to choose to abuse alcohol and it shuts down our liver, or if we go to work for 80 hours a week and ignore our family and then they walk away, our choices can hurt us. And that's the part of freedom that we don't like. Galatians chapter 6, verse 8 says, "The one who sows to please his sinful nature, from that nature will reap destruction." You see, in one sense, like blaming God for the problems we cause is like leaving a bicycle, one of my kids' bikes, out in the rain all winter long, and then blaming Him because it got rusty. Our free will and our choices can hurt us. And we also don't love it when other people use their freedom to hurt us, do we? Someone gets drunk, decides to get behind the wheel, ends up killing someone in our family or a friend of ours. Someone takes something from us, takes advantage of us, hurts us, causes us pain, and we can blame God in those situations, but the real problem is not God.